Welcome to Grieving Voices. If this is your first time listening, thank you for being here. And if you're coming back, I'm glad you came back. And today, my guest is Angela Clement. She is a former school principal, is a speaker, writer, energy healer, and the creator and host of the Awaken Your Soul's Journey series on grief. When her husband Blaine was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer in January 2021, Angela used her knowledge of energy healing to help him with his symptoms and her through the intense emotion. After he transitioned in October 2021, she continued her study seeking support from healers and coaches to help her. She has since hosted 4 online summits interviewing over 100 experts in grief. This information has helped her expand her new life and build a supportive community. Angela is passionate about helping others that are grieving find hope and live a life of joy and meaning after loss. As a certified grief coach, Angela provides one on one and group grief support and healing for those suffering from loss. And she's recently released her book, Awakening Through Grief, on November 1st of 2024. Thank you so much for being my guest today and for sharing your story. And I think through story is how we find and see ourselves in other people's stories and other people's experiences, and we realize that we are not alone in how we're feeling. And grief can make us feel like we're going utterly crazy sometimes. And I imagine I've been with my husband, we've been together over 20 years now, and there's such a fabric of your day-to-day life. Everything that you do is, this dance, right, with this other person. And 35 years is nothing to sneeze at. That's a significant amount of time to share your life with somebody. So take us back in time to, and my dad actually passed away of colon cancer when I was a child. So I'm also curious if you had children and navigating that and all of that. So I'll let you have the mic.
Okay. Well, thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it. And yeah, it was a huge loss. Like you said, we were together for 35 years. We lived on a ranch near a little town called Valmarie, and we had a life there. We had 2 children, and he ran the cow-calf operation, and I taught at the school, and I was a school principal for the last 12 years or so. And so, we expected that we would retire. He had sold the ranch. The kids had no interest in doing ranching. They were doing other things. And so we sold the ranch. And I had a couple of years left, maybe, before I retired, or so I thought. And then he got sick. And it was so sudden. It was just out of the blue. He just before Christmas, he wasn't feeling that well. He had kind of a pain in his gut. And we thought, well, maybe he had a hernia, or, you think gallbladder, or you think, all of these other things. But when the diagnosis came in, it was just, he described it as a punch in the gut. It was just, and that really never went away for him. It just took over his life. And so even while he was sick, I was grieving the loss of, the life that we had, the husband that I had. He was gone. He was fighting for his life. And so, yeah, it was devastating. We uprooted, we moved because we needed to get closer to a hospital. And so we moved to another town where my son lives. And and I retired. And so all of those things changed. My relationships changed. Where I was living changed. Everything changed. And so in some ways that was brutal. Because it's like the rug's been pulled out from underneath of you and you don't even know what to do. And but at the same time, when he did pass, it really gave me a clean break. I didn't have to go back to work. So I had time to grieve, and I had time to kind of figure things out. And as awful as it was, that was a blessing in disguise. I mean, now I look back and see it as a blessing. At the time, it was not. It did not feel like a blessing at all. Um, yeah, and the whole experience of looking after him, um, and practicing my energy healing was a catalyst for what I do now. So during that time when he was sick, I really started to immerse myself more and more into energy healing to help him and me through the emotions and through the illness. And through that, I discovered that this is what I really wanted to do. This is what I really want to do, is I want to help people, right? And so that's how I got into everything that I'm doing now, is because I took this path to learn more about energy healing.
Was that, I mean, October 2021 was not very long ago in the grand scheme of
Oh,
things. I mean, I think COVID is very fresh in our minds, and
oh yes.
um it seems like all of that change, how do you process that? How did you get to this point? Do you feel, was it the energy healing in such a short, it seems like a short amount of time to get to where you are today? And so I'm curious, maybe your past experience, how that influenced
Mm.
things for you, grief as a child, if you had those experiences.
Yeah, well, I did lose, grandparents, um, as I was growing up. I lost three grandparents. One of them was really close to me. Um, and so those came back up. And I think a lot of people find that, because we go through loss and sometimes we just don't really deal with it. We kind of just move through it and get on with our lives. And then, um, this big loss caused me to have to look at those previous losses and really start to process them. So it actually brought up a lot more than just, that grief. And so, how did I get through it? Well, I had a lot of support from family and friends, especially in the beginning. And that helped me get through the first few months. But after that, you know how people start to kind of live their own lives, and then you have to figure out, what you're going to do. And I decided that I needed help. And so the energy healing was one thing that I really did. I enlisted energy healers to work with me, one on one whenever I could. I watched a lot of summits, and I watched energy healers. And if they offered free sessions, I was all over that. Like, I was taking up whatever I could get. And learning more about it myself so that I could do healing on myself. So I practiced something called the Wonder Method, which is a form of, a modality of healing. And also, I took energy healing course with a lady by the name of Adrienne Blackwell. And she was the one that introduced me to Reiki and, like shamanic journeying, different types of healing, lots of different types. And so through that process and through getting help from a grief coach, that's how I moved through. But I will say that it just takes one little message sometimes to turn your thoughts around. So there was a fellow by the name of Sean Doyle who wrote an article in, it was online. And I remember sitting and reading it and the light bulb going on, because he had mentioned how he lost his wife suddenly. And then he realized that he could start a new life, that that would be one chapter, and that he would be able to start a new one. And there was something in me that really appeal to that because I was in such dire, well, we all know how that feels. It's the devastation is so strong that you just want out. You just want out. And so any hope that you can get, anything that anybody can tell you that you can move through it is music to your ears. And so when I heard that, I thought, okay, well, maybe it is possible to move through this, despite the fact that a lot of people had told me you will grieve for a lifetime and you will learn to live with this. I really didn't like that so much. That response was just not good enough for me.
Mhm.
And so after I heard that, I kept looking. And on Facebook, there was a quote that said, you will grieve for, some people will say, you will grieve for a lifetime. I choose otherwise. I choose the path from hurt to hope to healing every day. And that was a quote from Julie Clough, who became my grief coach. And when I saw that quote, I just intuitively knew I needed to work with her. And I did the 30-minute, discovery session, which I recommend people doing. Take that 30 minutes and check out the person that you think you might like to work with. And I knew in that 30 minutes that she was going to be able to help me. I was scared to death to work with her, terrified to be able to have to talk about my feelings. I knew I was going to cry, and I look back at that now and think, oh my gosh, there was so much fear there, but it changed my world. I looked forward to every week with her. And every time I met with her, we helped my thoughts, right? My thoughts were always pointing towards, I have to push this away. I have to get rid of these feelings. This is not good, right? And start to thinking about embracing those feelings and feeling those feelings in order to heal them. And I think that's what really started turning things around. And me knowing that there was a possibility that I could get better and that I could do it on my own time. Maybe that's faster, maybe that's slower, but I knew that I could move through it. And so I'm kind of like a go-getter that way. I want to move through things. And so tell me what I need to do, right? It's like, give me the X, Y, Z, and I'll do it so I can get to the next place. And it was a little frustrating to me because she said, there is no timeline and there is no like specific prescription for this. It is your own intuition that's going to guide you through this. And so I had to trust that I would move through it and trust in the process that she was laying before me and just let it do what it needed to do. And so that's what I talk about now. I talk about the process of grief and how we need to embrace it because it is a God-given process for us to heal. And so when we are pushing it away, we're actually pushing away the one thing that can help us. So that's what I talk about.
That's what I talk about too.
Excellent.
And it's like, tell me what I need to do and let me do it. And I'm curious if you're familiar with human design at all.
Yes, I
Are you a
am.
manifester?
Yes.
Too. I could totally hear manifester coming out of your mouth. That's hilarious.
Yes.
I love it. Well, I'm happy to meet a fellow manifester. What
Yeah.
profile? What is your I'm a 4/6 emotional.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know what my number is.
Okay, your profile. Okay. Well,
I'm not.
fair enough. It's enough to know that you're a manifester because
Yes, I do know that part.
that's what I was hearing. Because we are very much, let's get in there, let's get it done. And we move very quickly. We move very
Yeah.
quickly. And even through my own journey of I went through a process called the grief recovery method and certified in that. And are you familiar with that?
Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Have you read the book, the Grief Recovery Handbook?
No, but I interviewed the fellow. I'm just not remembering his name right now, but yes, I have interviewed him and talked to him about it. And I've done some research on that. And I always thought that it was the closest to what I believed the process should be, the way it should be taught. I remember listening to the messages, videos from that program and thinking, yeah, that resonates with me, makes sense to me.
It changed my life. It changed my
Yeah.
life because I had obviously grief as a child, and um it was it John James you interviewed?
Yes, it was John James.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's since passed away. Um
Oh no, sorry, it was his son.
oh, cool. Okay.
Be cool.
Yeah.
Yes.
Um
Yeah.
yeah, it's that's that program is that's very near and dear to my heart. So I'm curious for you, what as a child had you had, I mean, you expressed that you had lost grandparents and things, but what was the messages that you were receiving about grief? And then once you experienced it, like how did your family handle it? And what was the beliefs that you were brought up with about grief?
Yeah. Well, I think I was brought up to believe that, grief was something that happened. Um, it was sad. It was scary for me, because I felt like these emotions that were coming up, I didn't have any control over. They just come out of nowhere. And there was a lot of fear about showing those emotions in front of other people. And so we're taught that we need to hold it together for our families, right? We need to hold it together. We need to keep ourselves, as a principal, I remember thinking back, how we have to stay emotionally stable, right? I mean, if we don't, then, it's not professional, right? And so when we suppress that and we don't have an avenue to release it, then it comes up like a volcano. And looking back now, I realized, I was always pushing all those emotions down. And then when they did come up, of course they were scary. Of course they were out of control because I had buried them for so long that, when I had a cry, it wasn't a little cry, it was a big cry. And it could last for hours or days, right? So I realized afterwards that that was the reason. The suppression of the emotions was the reason why that was happening. And once I realized that, everything changed because I understood the process, right? So yeah, when growing up, that was the belief. And I was being told that when you lose your spouse, you will grieve that forever. And I interpreted that as this feeling of devastation staying there forever and me getting used to feeling that way. And so I really caution people using that kind of language because for me it was so disheartening, and others will repeat that. They will say that over and over, and that's not exactly how it is, or at least that's not how I've lived that experience. I certainly do not feel that punch in the gut that Blaine talked about, that both of us had at the beginning. I don't feel that anymore. And it's not clouding all of my holidays. I can still enjoy Christmas and birthdays and all of those things and not have that cloud of sadness over top of all of it. And I think that was, the most depressing thing is I kept thinking, well, I can't even enjoy any holidays. I can't enjoy any of the things that I used to enjoy because every time I do that, there's this cloud of sadness that comes in because he's not there.
Or guilt?
Yes, or guilt. Exactly. Yeah. So I think it's just, changing how I was seeing grief and changing my whole outlook on it really helped me. And the whole idea oh gosh, I can't think of the word right now. But the growth that can come from that kind of experience um, really encouraged me too, because I thought, okay, well, if I can use this as a way to grow and improve as a human being, rather than putting it, um, setting him in my tracks and just living life like the best I can until I die, having that, what do they call, post-traumatic growth, there's the word. Having that and the idea of that happening was much more encouraging for me than thinking that I was just going to live the rest of my days carrying my grief with me.
The image I had in my mind was we have a choice to either imagine ourselves walking on a beach or being sucked in quicksand.
Mm.
And I think that's when people tell people that that's what you're destined to experience. That's first of all, number one, that's an opinion. Second of all, if that's their experience, perhaps they haven't been open to receiving new knowledge, new information, new experiences, right? I think you have to be open to be receptive of those things, or you won't hear it. You absolutely
Right.
won't hear it.
Right.
Um, and so I'm curious, like the energy healing. I know you said that that was something that you got into as your husband was going through his cancer before he passed, but was that something that you found interesting as a child? Like, what were you kind of into as a child?
Yeah, I got interested in energy healing when my son was sick,
Oh,
when he was a baby, actually. He had something called Hirschsprung's disease, which is a rare bowel disease. And we did surgery and we did all kinds of Western medicine, but none of it seemed to be working that well. And so one of my friends suggested that I go see a healer. And so that was really my first experience with it. And she healed him. So after that, I just kept reading books, and I worked with her a little bit just for, a day workshop, and I had this maybe activation of being able to use the energy in certain ways, able to um, feel it. And so I would practice on people. I would just, pick family, whoever was game for it. I would help them with, symptoms, headaches, whatever. And I would say I just dabbled in it. That's what I did. I dabbled in it. I was interested in it. I read about it. I dabbled in it until Blaine got sick, and then things got more serious. But I did have experiences with healers. I had some health issues that I had healers working with me that I was able to resolve. So it it's always been there. It just seems like now I've been catapulted into taking it really seriously and starting to really use it for myself and others.
I actually just read something just recently about manifestors in particular in energy healing work and how, well, first of all, as manifestors, we don't like to be told what to do.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a matter of us finding what resonates with us. And I tried a lot of things too, but I too fell into Reiki and became a Reiki master. And now I do biofield tuning, which if you've never heard of that, look
Mm,
into that. That's really
yeah,
amazing. It's like Reiki on steroids. Um,
nice.
I love it. It's you use tuning forks. Um, but do you feel like the energy work has been the one thing that's helped you as a man? I'm bringing this back to manifestors because there's only like 9% of us in the world. We're a very small percentage, but we can often feel so misunderstood. And and especially I think when we're in grief, we can feel extra in
Mhm.
those areas, and especially when it comes to anger. And so what was the role of anger? I'm kind of going in a different area, but what was the role of anger for you? Because that is actually our not self theme, is anger. And I had a really difficult relationship with anger up until only just a few years ago. And so how has that been for you? And anger is something we all experience. And so this is relevant to
Mhm.
everybody, but it's
Yeah.
especially more potent for a manifester. But what has been your experience with navigating anger?
Yeah. Well, the belief system was always that anger was a bad thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you suppress your anger. And then, like I said, when it comes up and it's full blown, right? Like you barely have control of that. So when we were going through the illness with Blaine together, um, there were a couple of moments where I got really angry and yelling and throwing things and just losing it basically. And when that happened, I felt so bad because it was like he did not need that. And so then I suppressed it even more so that it would not happen again. And I swore it was not going to happen again. And I suppressed it so much that when I was grieving, I couldn't even recognize it. It
Mm.
was like it wasn't there. People would say, "Well, you feel anger." And I'm like, "No, I don't. I don't feel any anger. There's no anger." And then what I had to do, it's interesting, it came to me intuitively somehow. I had to say, if I was going to be angry, what would I be angry about? And then I wrote down all the things that I would be angry about. And as I was writing those and making the list, and it was long, I could feel it bubbling up. I could
Mm.
feel it boiling inside of me. And then I had to let it out. And it was an experience. Um, just releasing that. And I remember like taking soft things and throwing them around the room and just pounding on my bed and like just just any way I could possibly get that energy out. That's what I did. But yeah, it was suppressed big time.
How does it look now when you feel it coming up? Like, what do you do? What are some techniques and things that you would recommend to people when those big emotions like anger come up?
Yeah. So now I recognize that there's a reason, first of all, that it's coming up. It's not just a random act, that there's something behind it. And so then I get curious. What is it? What is it that's causing this? And I like to find a space where I can just sit. I'm losing my voice for some reason. Find a space where I can just sit and just let it come up. And if I can't do that, I will suppress it until I can find a space because I don't want that, but I will never leave it. We talk about the waiting room, how emotions will come up or triggers will come up, at work or in a place where you can't deal with them, maybe, where you can just say, I'm gonna get to you. It's okay. You can make a nice imaginary waiting room for those emotions and then deal with them later. But you have to go back to them. And so I have to recreate that situation and bring the emotions back up so that I can deal with them. But if I sit in silence and I just sit with that emotion long enough, it will tell me what what the bottom line is, what I'm really afraid of, because usually it's a fear, right? It's like some kind of fear at the bottom of that anger. And once you recognize it, then that's most of the process, because after that you're either going to find a way to deal with it. There might be some steps that you can take to help yourself, or you're going to release it emotionally if it's something in the past. So, and you can always ask for help, right? I always think we don't have to do these things alone, but just recognizing that you are angry and that there is a purpose to it. There's a reason. There's something that needs to be healed and it's coming up. And how can we best address that?
How would you have described the Angela before Blaine passed versus the Angela now?
The Angela before was living a happy life. It was a beautiful life. It was all the things that you talk about. You have a good job, you live in a nice community, you have good friends, you have a nice husband, you have wonderful kids. And yet now I realize that even then, with all of that happiness, I wasn't truly fulfilled. There was something missing. I was there, the meaning wasn't there. I wasn't feeling the full range of emotions because I was keeping myself at that, trying to keep myself at that even keel, right? Now, don't get too excited, don't get too angry, don't get, so you're staying in that even place. And when you're allowed to just let those emotions go and you realize you're here to experience those, then you start to feel joy that's way more than you could imagine, and also sadness all the way, right? But you embrace it because it's so amazing and it's so wonderful. It's just a totally different way of looking at things.
How would you describe how it's changed your relationship with your kids?
Yeah, the interesting thing is that I would never cry in front of my kids, and now I will. Sometimes I will. Um, but I think the biggest thing that helped me, because we didn't talk about this sort of stuff. We're not, some families are more, I love you and hugs and all of that kind of thing. And I always think that's so beautiful. But we were more standoffish. We didn't do that, right? Neither one of our families did. And so it was interesting. Like now I feel like I can hug my kids if I want to, right? It's not an awkward thing. It shouldn't be an awkward thing. And also, I found that through my blog writing, I was expressing my feelings and they were able to read it. And I didn't realize the effects of that until afterwards. It was like giving them a window to what was happening within me. And they were watching my growth as I was moving along and experiencing the grief with me, really. And I didn't know it. So I thank, you know, the universe for pushing me to put those words out there so that my kids could see what I was going through. Because I don't think we would have had the conversation. We'd touch on it, but it wouldn't be that deep conversation of, what's really happening emotionally. And now we can.
That's a beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, I'm curious as to, I mean, it's been 3 years, but do you look forward to a future relationship? Are you in a relationship? Are you dating? Like, what's that like?
Mm-hmm.
Grief of that?
Yeah, it's interesting. So I know that you have to be happy with yourself. Um, you have to learn to love yourself and to be with yourself and to be alone with yourself and happy with that situation. And so I'm in this place where I am happy the way I am. And I love the freedom and I love, being able to just take off and go on a holiday and, and do all these things. yet that, yes, there is a yearning there to have someone to do that with. Because when you are by yourself in the evening watching TV, or, I don't really do much of that, but you don't have anything to do and you don't really feel like doing anything, you're just relaxing. That's when you feel like, it would be nice to have somebody. Or if you're traveling, it would be nice to have a partner to travel with, right? So there's this yearning to have that best friend, that companion, that relationship again. But I'm not willing to go on a dating site, at least not yet. And so I've kind of just told the universe, you know what, if he's out there, show him to me, because, but I had to go through a process of um, realizing that love is infinite. So just because when I had my son, and then I had my daughter, I didn't love my daughter less than I did my son. When I had the next child, I just like, there was just more love. I just loved her as much as I loved him. And if I'd had another child, I would have loved that child as much as I loved the first two, right? It expands. And so I realized with a new partner, that's the way it's going to be. It's like, I still have this love for Blaine and it's always going to be there. And yet a new partner would be an expansion on that. And so when I look at it that way, then it opens up the possibilities.
That is beautiful. And I've never heard someone articulate it in that way. And the flip side of that is people look to replace.
Mm.
Yeah. And you're familiar with the grief recovery method. And so you understand the 6 myths. And one of them is replace the loss. And that's what we do when, even as children, if we lost a dog or a pet or something, the parents, that's okay. We can go get another dog. Let's just
Right.
replace the one you just lost,
Right.
really disregarding the feelings and the emotion and the relationship that the child had with that first pet.
Mm-hmm.
It's so I love how you said it's framed in a way where it's an expansion of what's already there and what's was already present. It's a very different intention going in.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. And I truly think that if you have, needs, so being alone and you're like, well, I need a partner because I feel so alone, or I need a partner because I need financial security, or I need a partner because da 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 da. If you're going out into the world seeking that, then the universe is going to reciprocate. And to me, you want to be in a space where you have, it's not a need, it's an enhancement to an already fulfilled and happy life. And so I know that's not the easiest thing, but I truly believe that's the way you want to go into the next relationship.
There's a healthy way and there's an unhealthy way. And I
Mm-hmm.
think eventually you'll find out which that you found yourself in, the situation
Mm-hmm.
that you find yourself in. And again, intention is huge when it comes to energy healing. Intention's half of it, three-fourths of it.
Yeah.
It's no different in every other aspect of our lives, is the intention that we bring. That's the energy we're bringing into
Right.
that experience too.
Yeah.
Um, I know we're getting down to the wire on time, so I want to ask you, um, what has your grief taught you?
Well, really, it's taught me to live life to the fullest. And it's a beautiful thing because Blaine did live his life to the fullest. If he wanted something, he went and got it. Like, there was no, he enjoyed things fully. And so I feel like I'm carrying on a bit of a legacy and in living my life that way. And I think we realize that life is short, right? And we need to do what we can to live it fully, um, no matter what our circumstances are. And so, yeah, that's what I've learned.
And also too, I want to kind of shift gears just really quickly to the fact that you give angel readings, because
Mhm.
it's to be from someone who was just dabbling to now
Mhm.
doing angel readings. What do you feel like has been, now of course energy healing work has kind of catapulted everything in this spiritual metaphysical trend, trajectory in your life.
Mhm.
But I fully believe that we all have this gift to some extent. And so how have you harnessed that in your life, and how has that developed the gift of being able to tune in in that way?
Mhm. Well, it started with me really wanting to be able to connect with Blaine. And I think a lot of people have that desire. They want to be able to connect with their loved one. And at first, when I went to energy healing sessions, a lot of the healers had that gift. And so they could give me messages from Blaine, which I just thought was the most amazing thing because they would tell me things that they could never know. And so I knew he's truly there. I knew he's following me around. He's helping me with all kinds of things that I didn't realize. And that gave me a lot of comfort. It was a big part of my healing. And so then I realized, well, if I could help others with this, being a grief coach would be totally enhanced by being able to do an angel reading. And so the way that I do it now is I use oracle cards to help me. Because I'm just not yet at that place where I can just pull the messages out from wherever. I'm sure that it'll get there someday. I truly believe too that we all have that gift. So now what I do is I pull the cards, and as I pull the cards, the messages start to come in. So I think the pictures help, the words help, and the way I developed that was just um, I had oracle cards as a young mom, and I would pull them for myself at night just to help me through different circumstances and things. And I always felt better after I pulled the cards. It was like, oh, that's the message I needed to hear, right? And so I just realized one day that, hey, I could do this for other people. I don't need to just do this for myself. It's funny how we have these really simple realizations. And so, yeah, then I started helping people with that way. So, yeah, that's how I stumbled upon it.
It's been the same for me. It's like, get them for myself, and oh, well, I can, yeah, let's do this for you too. Our stories are kind of similar in that way, but um well, I want to give you an opportunity to share before we disconnect here, where, if there's anything else you want to share that you didn't feel you got to first.
Yeah, well, the only thing I just want to make sure that people know that there's hope. You can move through this. It is possible, and you can live a fulfilling and happy and joyful life again. You totally can. So just keep searching. Keep moving.
I have the same mission statement, so thank you for sharing. Where can people find you if they would like to connect with you and get your book and podcast, all of that?
So healingenergy.world is my website, and everything is there. The podcast links are there. I have meditations there. I have a group support that's free. You can sign up for that. We meet about every 10 days or so, and it's a fantastic group. Um,
Online or in person?
Online, we meet on
Okay.
Zoom. Yep.
Okay.
And that's been going on for a couple of years now. And I have my healing sessions. I have the Awakening Through Grief program that you can take, and also, yeah, my book, which just launched, and it's all about my story. There's exercises, journal prompts, all the things that I worked through with energy healing. I share in there for people so that they can use them too. Lots of practical things, and yeah, lots of spiritual journey in there as well, because that was a big part of it. So,
Well, and I will link to those in the show notes. And I thank you so much for your time today and sharing your story. And um, one more, one final question.
Hmm.
What has Blaine taught you through that experience? What did Blaine teach you through that experience?
What did Blaine teach me? Um, well, he's still here teaching me.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah. So, like, he never leaves my side. He never leaves my side. And he's been guiding me. I truly think that, he's just an angel now, guiding me until I meet him again. Um, and it's a beautiful relationship. It really is. It's really transformed. And so I guess maybe what I realized is just the depth of love and how it can withstand all kinds of challenges, and it permeates through all realms. It's amazing. It's always there. It's indestructible. You can't get rid of it. It's great.
Well, and I think that's one of the greatest myths of death, right? Is that the relationship ends,
Yes.
but it doesn't have to. And I think that's the message I'm hearing you say, and the larger message in what you have shared today.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Love endures.
Hmm.
Thank you so much for sharing today and being my guest. And yeah, thank you. This is a
Yeah.
wonderful
Thank you.
conversation.
Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for what you're doing. I really appreciate it.
Takes many of us, right?
Yes, it does.
And remember, when you unleash your heart, you unleash your life. Much love.